All right, you guys are going to have to help me out with this one. I've always thought of cruising as a super chill activity, a very relaxing activity, an activity where we leave the stresses and the anxiety and the aggression of the world at home behind. Well, man, I got yelled at so many times on this last 10-day cruise that it's got me questioning everything. Is cruising super chill? And a whole new question I've been contemplating. Are cruise lines mean? And is Princess Cruises the meanest cruise line? Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your host, Tony, and I've got multiple stories of getting yelled at on this 10-day cruise to New England and Canada. And these stories are interesting. I'm ready to share them with you, but first I would like to highlight and thank the sponsor of today's show. Today's episode is sponsored by Babbel. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world. Teaches you language by using real-world conversations. And while I'm about to be embarking on a journey that will need some real-world conversations, you may or may not know it, but I'm prepping up for a big trip next year where I'll take a transatlantic cruise to Barcelona. Then I've got 10 days in Barcelona. Then I'll take a transatlantic cruise home. And I think 10 days is the longest I've ever been in country. And as I was digging around the Babbel app, I realized they have lessons for Spanish, Latin American Spanish, but then they also have lessons for in Spain Spanish. And so I've started working on my lessons on Babbel. The cool thing is you can set up your goals. And so it has me set for doing 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week over the next few months to really pick this up. But of course, you could accelerate that if you want. Let me give you a quick example of what you're in for, especially if you're at the very beginning of your journey. It's going to start by saying words to you, and then you pick the word. So here we go.
Hola.
Hola. And it's hello, of course. We got the thumbs up for picking the right word. Gracias. Thank you. I really appreciate the efforts that Babbel goes through to make learning a language as frictionless as possible, as easy as possible. And as someone who travels internationally frequently, I can say this with confidence. As you start to unlock the languages of the places that you are visiting, it's almost like you level up. You unlock a whole nother level of the travel experience. And excitingly, if you want to try this out for yourself, you can do it at a discount. If you click the link in the description or scan the QR code that's on the screen, you can get 60% off your subscription at Babbel. Big thanks to Babbel for sponsoring today's episode. All right, let me set this stage for you. Let me put it in context. I started cruising back in 2017, and this 10-day Caribbean Princess New England Canada cruise, my 49th cruise, and I've done it across 10 cruise lines. So I've been on all the major cruise lines and some of the secondary cruise lines. And let me say this, out of all of those 49 cruises, well, should I say 48 cruises, I don't think I've ever been verbally yelled at. I don't think anybody's ever looked me in the eye and raised their voice at me that I can remember. But this cruise is special, I guess, because it started on the very first day. It started on embarkation day. And if you've cruised before, you know that one of the big requirements of embarkation day is the muster drill. Now, my assigned muster station was Muster Station D, located on Deck 7, the promenade deck of this cruise ship, located inside. The meeting spot was right across from the entrance of one of the lounges. And when I arrived to have my medallion scanned to signify that I completed the muster, there was a little bit of a line. So I joined the line. And while I was in line, I was recognized by a couple, and they came up and started talking to me while I was in line waiting to get my medallion scanned. And look, up until this point, none of it's unusual. On embarkation day, it's always very crowded. In the corridors of cruise ships, there's people milling about trying to get their muster drill done. And so what was interesting and somewhat alarming is while I was standing in line waiting to get my medallion scanned, an older lady came up to me and started yelling at me. She began to lecture me loudly. She had taken umbrage with the fact that the queue for the muster drill check-in had somehow impeded everybody's ability to move down the promenade deck. And somehow, maybe because I was the tallest person in line, somehow it was my fault for the bottleneck. She used the Socratic method. She said, "Don't you know that this is a prominent walkway on the cruise ship? Don't you know that you are blocking it? Don't Don't you know that people have some place to go? And unfortunately, before I was able to answer any of those questions, she scowled at me and she walked off, somehow magically being able to make her way down the promenade. Now, in reality, if this was the only time I'd gotten yelled at on this 10-day cruise, I don't think I'd be telling this story, but unbeknownst to me in that moment, this was just the beginning of a series of getting yelled at, and seemingly I got yelled at by the same person, or I don't know. We'll explore that later. Let's explore altercation number 2. This one happened on the second day of the cruise, the day we went to port in Newport, Rhode Island. The plan was simple: walk to the free bus, take the free bus to the closest stop to the breakers, and then go explore the breakers. And while the plan seemed simple enough, the execution got a little complex because the free bus was quite crowded, and the only spot I could find on the free bus was a standing spot toward the back of the bus. You know how it is when you've never done a thing, you don't know the first time exactly how it's going to play out. You don't know the do's and the don'ts. And so I was on the back of the bus, and there were a lot of people. We were engaged in conversation, and you could hear the murmur of the bus driver on a loudspeaker somewhere, but you couldn't exactly make out what she was saying. And no matter how much you tried to quiet down, you really couldn't make out the words. But it became apparent that she would be announcing the stops on the bus route. Unfortunately, I'd gotten a map from the information center that had the numbers of the bus stop that we wanted to get off, and I thought that was bus stop 3. And well, the bus stopped, and I wasn't sure what bus stop it was. And so we got off of the bus in the back of the bus and walked to the front of the bus outside so that we could converse with the bus driver, because we wanted to get off at the right stop. So as I walked up to the bus driver and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, is this bus stop 3?" And she said, "No, this is not bus stop 3. I clearly said it was bus stop 1. I'm not sure why you got off the bus if you're wanting to go to the breakers." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I can get there from here, right? I just couldn't hear you." And as soon as I got those words, "I just couldn't hear you," out of my mouth, there was a lady sitting behind the bus driver that began to berate me. Well, maybe you could have heard what the bus driver said if you weren't talking in the back of the bus. And certainly me participating in any conversation in the back of the bus could have really knocked me out of hearing what the bus driver said. Fair enough point, but I was just shocked that this lady thought it was her place to interject in the conversation I was having with the already somewhat disgruntled bus driver. And it was in that moment where that inflection point occurred, where you can see red and lash back out, or you can retreat. That's what I chose to do. I just said, "Hey, sorry for the misunderstanding. I'm just going to walk from here," and had a great day going to explore the breakers. But in all honesty, as I walked along that cliff walk in Newport, contemplating the spectacular summer homes of the rich and the famous, I still couldn't shake the fact that some lady that wasn't a part of a discussion took it upon herself to yell at me. And I don't know, it could have been the same lady that yelled at me on embarkation day. I can't say for certain that it was the lady, but what I can say for certain is they both fit the same mold. And then I got into a rhythm. I made it through the day in Boston without getting yelled at. I made it through the day in Portland, Maine without getting yelled at. I made it through the day in St. John, New Brunswick without getting yelled at. Well, then we made port in Halifax, Nova Scotia. What a great port stop that is. The Maritime Museum, the Citadel, the whole waterfront pier area. And also right beside the cruise port, they have a museum that celebrates the immigration of Canada, very similar to Ellis Island, where you can go and research the folks that came to Canada through that port there in Halifax. I'd gone 3 full days without any kind of altercation, but that streak came to a crashing end as I stood in the interior corridor of the cruise terminal, an entrance to the Immigration Museum. It's one of those doorways where there were 2 doors and kind of a T-bar in the middle. And I positioned myself, my shoulder behind that metal T, and I took this shot. And as I finished recording that shot, an older woman walked around me, stopped, looked at me, and said to me, "Oh, I'm sorry that I was in your way. I'll try not to do it again." And I said, "Ma'am, you weren't in my way. I'm pretty sure you were behind me." And she said, "Yeah, I was behind you. You were in my way." And then she turned around and walked off. I don't know what it is. I must have applied a double dose of my high karate cologne that morning, but certainly I ended up the target of this older woman's ire just by me being where I was in that moment. And yeah, it's perplexing. Like I've said many times before, I'm an introvert. I'm voice activated. If you speak to me, I'll speak to you, but most of the time I'm not initiating conversation. I'm not initiating interaction with strangers. I'm not trying to be in other people's circles. I'm certainly not trying to be in other people's way. On a cruise ship, I am someone who is content to be off to the side, out of the way, in the back. This is what I prefer. Again, I don't like negative human interaction, and sometimes I don't even like positive human interaction. That's just the way I am wired, and I'm okay with it. I know how to cope in this world that I live in. And so anytime I have these odd encounters where people end up disgruntled because of my presence, it plays with my mind a little bit. And so let's cut to the chase. I did have another incident on the sea day. So I had 4 separate encounters where people, strangers, raised their voice at me for whatever reason. So 40%, 4 out of 10 days on my cruise, I had these encounters. And so look, my observation is this: all of these people that yelled at me were essentially people that were older than I am. I don't work at a carnival. I'm not sure to guess how old somebody is, but if I was trying to guess, I would say these folks were probably in their 70s and 80s. I guess the thing that takes me aback is that folks that are in their 70s and 80s are from the generation that are always preaching about respect and treating people well, and the decline of society where people aren't respecting each other and treating people well. It challenges me a little bit because in all of those circumstances, I certainly could have been in the wrong place. I could have been blocking the traffic. I could have been in somebody's way. But it seems to me that instead of taking the path of respect and speaking to me in a cordial way and saying, excuse me, or whatever you do societally to get somebody to move out of your way or to express your feelings, it seemed like rage is what was chosen. So I'm not sure what conclusion I'm supposed to draw here. I certainly don't think it would be fair to paint with a broad brush and say everybody in their 70s and 80s are disgruntled, but I have observed that as people get older, they do seem to become more disgruntled. I don't know if you've seen that also, but I guess one conclusion I could arrive at is that out of my 49 cruises, well, this was certainly the one where people treated me the meanest. So maybe, at least for me, the Princess is the meanest cruise line. I don't know. Time for you to sound off. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Thanks for checking out the show today. Thanks for Babbel for the sponsorship. Please hit the like button on your way out. This is Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Be nice to each other. Bye.